It's a huge honor today to be sitting in my home with Dr. Philip Gordon, who you know, he's been on the show before, his buddy Chris Barrett. You're from Leawood, Kansas. You're from Cedar Rapids, South Dakota.
Rapid City, South Dakota. And, sorry, there's a Cedar Rapids there, too, isn't there? Yeah, Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Oh,
I'm from Iowa.
But you guys are down here for the inaugural event of Justin Moody launching his Implant Pathways.
Correct.
Is that what it's called?
Session 4, Implant Pathways. Yep.
Implant Pathways?
Yeah.
Well, you're already an implant legend.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, no, you are. Big fan of your podcast, Dental Implant Practices. You've put up 70 podcasts on Dental Town. It's an amazing show. So what did you think of Justin's inaugural event?
You know, it's been great so far. So I took his session 1, 2, and 3 a little over a year ago, and those are kind of the didactic learning courses. And then he's got session 4, which is a hands-on live surgery, right? And what makes it unique is it's one of the only places in the United States where you can get a temporary license in another state, go work on patients in the U.S., over-the-shoulder training with someone who's going to teach you how to do everything that you need to do with implants. So it's a great opportunity, and this is the first weekend where he's opened his own clinic that he's teaching out of his clinic, his machines, his patients, and all that. And you just come in and he'll show you how to do it all. So it's good.
Yeah. So the reason you could come out here with your license from Kansas and your license from Iowa/South Dakota is because Chris Volchek, who was born in Globe, Arizona, and is a big fan of public health, you know, the one specialty that no one ever really talks about. And so he went down to the Arizona board and he said, if a licensed dentist from another American state comes here, can they have a temporary license to do volunteer dentistry on the homeless veteran shelter? They got 3. They got a pediatric homeless shelter. I think it's funded by GoDaddy. Chris is good at raising money from that gazillionaire, and he's and that's so neat. And I wish other states would do it because 2 big horses like you don't care about going to Dominican Republic. There's one south of Arizona, Yuma. You know, there's several south of San Diego. What's south of San Diego? What's that city?
Tijuana.
Yeah, Tijuana.
But girls don't like going down to Tijuana.
No, wives don't want to go there. And
and wives don't want to go there. And
your passport's a hassle. And where's the follow-up care with those patients? And you know,
you
are
don't
they
see
being
'em
properly
again?
screened and all that? I mean, there's lots of issues with going out of the country, right? So staying in the state is ideal. You know, staying in the states, and like you said, somebody's kind of paved the road there. And he was working out of the Brighter Way clinic for a while, but he just opened his own clinic, very similar to the Brighter Way.
Yeah.
But the Brighter Way is I think is what kicked in the door, you know, for that opportunity. And it's interesting because I called. I'm on the board of Kansas and Missouri, and so I'm licensed in both, and I called both of the state boards, and they said, you know, we're not interested in never doing anything like that. I said, well, what if we set something up where it's a give back program, we're training, and they said, no, we're not going to do that at all. So it's interesting that Arizona's got that open. Because there's not many states that do, and I feel like they're missing out on opportunity there. So
I think
it's good that the state's doing it.
Well, you know, the only people I've ever met in my entire life that like change are little babies with a dirty diaper. But you know, you could really checkmate them in PR. I mean, if there's a homeless shelter dental clinic, and the key with them was vets, because these vets were coming back. And they got post-traumatic stress disorder, and a lot of them had lost their teeth from shrapnel and stuff. And what are the 2 things they're not covered on when they get back? Mental health and dental health.
When I did a GPR to VA in Iowa City, and it was one of those things where even if it wasn't the shrapnel, everybody's sending them cookies and candy and Gatorades, and it's 120 degrees, and there's no oral care. They come back, just rampant decay. And it's just patch them up, and then that's it. And it's really sad.
And I don't want to be the asshole. But I just do anyway because I'm so good at it. But I mean, there's really famous dentists who do these national Halloween buyback programs and then ship all that candy to the troops. Yeah. One of them's my buddy. Who's that guy? His dad started the AACD, and he started the oral system. And Chris Kammer. And I cringe every year I see it. It's like, Chris, you know more about this than anybody. What the shit are you setting
Go throw them in a landfill.
Troops a bunch of freaking candy? Because you know they're not out there flossing their teeth in a bunker. It's a crazy deal. But I think if anybody guys listening, if you found homeless vets shelters that do volunteer dentistry on the homeless shelter, and then you pitch that to your dental society, they said no, then I would send the letter and the information to your local TV station.
Yeah.
Wait till someone puts a pipe in your, how come you won't let American dentists, licensed in state 2 doors down, come here and do free dentistry on our vet, since our government, did they cover dental at your vet when you worked in the VA?
Just basic stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no implant coverage, no advanced dentistry. It was basically remove decay, fillings, maybe some crowns, and that was it. And they would get 1 round of coverage. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to see you back for some follow-up care.
Yeah.
So
So that
there,
would
yeah.
you would be looking pretty stupid on the TV with a mic in your face saying, why won't you let volunteer Dentists America come to your town and help your vets? I think it's a checkmate.
Well, this is a good model, and so
Yeah.
we'll give this model more time to develop here, and it's going great.
Yeah.
And I think we'll start knocking on some other doors.
And America has, there's 1/3 of a billion people there. You don't need to go to another country to find poor people.
There's a need. There's a need everywhere.
Let me read Philip's bio. Dr. Philip Gordon grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, and has lived there most of his life. He received his bachelor's degree in nutritional sciences from the University of Missouri in Columbia. His desire to learn about anatomical processes and biological sciences, combined with exposure to his father's dental office early in life, are what influenced his decision to attend dental school. He attended the University of Missouri, Kansas City, which is the greatest dental school in the history of all dental schools, where he received his degree. You graduated in what year? 2009?
2009, yep.
And I was the class just right ahead of him in 1987. And since then, he has taken hundreds of hours of CE every year in implant and cosmetic dentistry to stay at the forefront of the latest and greatest dental techniques and advancements. Dr. Gordon wants to establish great relationships with his patients and provide them with the best dental care available. He enjoys all dental procedures, but has a particular interest in and emphasis cosmetic smile design, surgical procedures, and implant dentistry. Dr. Gordon and his wife, Lori, have 2 young boys, Ben and Jack. How old are they now?
They're 6 and 5, and we actually added a new one.
You got 3 now.
We've got 3 now. So we've got little baby Isla. So she was born December 15th. So I need to update my bio.
Nice. So
we've
she'll
got
grow up with 2 older brothers.
2 older brothers and a younger sister, and they just adore her. So it's fun. So mom's got her girl, and so my boys, they're just like me. They're all boy, all energy, all rowdy, and it's like raising boys. They're just right out of the gate. They're just wild. And then this little girl comes along, and she's just so calm and chill and laid back. And then she's got her daddy's blue eyes, so I'm just wrapped around her.
Yeah,
She got me wrapped around her finger. Just,
one reason I'll never sell my dental office till I die, because if I sold my dental office, I'd have to find a room in this house and put in a chair and a compressor and all that. But my little perfect granddaughter, last time she was here, she was pretending she was rowing a boat, and the paddle knocked off the half of her brother's tooth.
oh, good, yeah.
So luckily Zach was my dental assistant for a year, so we just jump in the family car and drive
There you
3
go.
miles up the street and try to rebuild brother's missing tooth. So these kids, it's amazing. Ryan and I did a podcast with these 2 kids that just graduated from dental school. Most of these dental school tuitions are now $70,000 to $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
It was just 5 years ago that they were just routinely graduating $300,000 in debt.
Yeah.
Now they're routinely graduating $400,000 in debt, because that's how much tuition's gone up in as little as 5 years. University of Washington just jacked up their tuition. These kids went to school there, and they're already in the deal, and I guess they had over a $10 million budget deficit, and but anyway, these 2 kids just graduated. One had never done a root canal in dental school, and the other one did one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's brutal.
And I've never met anyone who placed an implant.
Yeah.
So let's get back to basics. And then when we always ask them, send me an email, howard@dentaltown.com. Tell me how old you are, where you live, what country, all that stuff. 25% of them are still in dental school.
Yeah.
And the rest are all 30 and under. When I get on an airplane with a book and I see another guy at the book, I don't have to ask if he has grandchildren. It's just an obvious given. But these kids, it's all Kindles and audiobooks and podcasts and all stuff like that. So she just walked out of dental school.
Yeah.
She's 25 years old. She's never placed an implant.
Yeah.
How does she start her journey? How does she end up like you?
The good thing about it is when you started, and even when I started, there weren't a lot of opportunities, right? There may have been a couple. Might have been Mish or Midwest Dental Implant Institute. There might have been 2 or 3 places to go. And the opportunities then were still somewhat limited. It was more pushed on restorative and not surgical placement. Nowadays, there's almost too many places to go, right? So what I try to do with some of the things that I'm working on is take people where they're at in their career, whether they're just out of school, whether they've been out a couple of years and want to desire more, or they're a seasoned dentist and want to add more services or more excitement to their practice, to say, okay, let's evaluate where you're at, what you're wanting to do, and let's find you opportunities to get there, because there's not just one path anymore. Now, that being said, we kind of get one go on this merry-go-round, right? So you want to spend your time and money and efforts wisely. So I try to direct people to quality resources. The implant pathway is a good resource. The AAID maxi courses are a good resource. Some of the product implant companies have some good introduction courses. So I think the main thing is just to kind of find a decent course that can open your eyes to the opportunity, get you a little exposure, and see if this is something that's right for you.
A couple things. There's 9 specialties recognized by the ADA, and there's 0 specialties recognized by our court system. So that's a new change in my life.
Yep.
That Texas Supreme Court deal where that guy was advertising, he was the implantologist.
Yep.
And the Texas Dental Association decided they were going to stop that, and
Sure.
it goes to court, and the court's like, dude, you're a club.
Yeah.
You're a membership club. You're in here in my court acting like you're some government agency.
Yeah.
Furthermore, sir, do you specialize in implants? And he's like, yeah, that's all I do. And
Yeah.
it's like, what is the problem? And there was no appeal to that. It wasn't even a month later, and the lawyers, the ADA, released a deal. Said, yeah, that's just our deal.
It's a fair deal.
It's not a government. But when you
So
look
state
at
by state now, that's becoming an issue. So the ADA is not going to open it up. They're releasing that to the credentialing board. So each state now is going to have to pass that. So Texas has it, and maybe a couple others. But
California,
California.
Florida,
So that's
Ohio.
going to become a state deal. So an individual or entity within that state is going to have to pursue legal action state by state to say this is a specialty now, as it's recognized by a governing board like the ABOI for implantology. So implantology is becoming a specialty, not through the ADA, but through its own pathway.
But not through a government agency. I mean,
No,
not
no.
from the state board.
No, from a credentialing agency. There's the ABOI, the American Board of Oral Implantology.
But the ABOI is no different than the ADA. I mean, it's a voluntary membership organization.
Yes,
Without
yeah.
any regulatory power.
Well, correct, yeah. But who was setting the specialties
Thanks, buddy.
before? Like, who was setting the dental specialties
Well,
before?
back in the day, they used to call laws that everybody follows but aren't really laws. They used to call them blue laws.
Yeah.
Like when I was little, all the barbers were closed Monday. And they all agreed to that because other than that, they're never going to get a day off because
Yeah.
if you open up
Like
Monday,
restaurant business.
Yeah, and so they had all these blue laws that would just people, and I think that especially was just a blue law. It was, the dentist all agreed to this, and
And then there was a credentialing board for ortho and oral surgeon,
and it
still stays that way.
Yeah, but it's all voluntary. There's
Yes.
no
Yeah.
government agency. And if the Texas Dental Association wouldn't have overreached their hand, it still would have gone on.
Yeah.
So it was a pushback and overreaching. But I want to tell you something because you graduate $500,000 in debt. A general dentist only makes the average is $174,790 a year. Average endodontist $325,000. Oral surgeons who are extracting teeth and doing implants are the highest at $413,000. Orthodontists, if you're in Invisalign, $301,000. Pediatric dentistry, $347,000. Pediatric dentistry actually makes more than endo. So and then periodontist, which I don't even really know what a periodontist really is anymore. I mean,
That's the bigger mystery. At this
when
point.
I got out of school, it was all quadrant surgery. And then they decided to treat everything with titanium. And now, with 20% of implants having peri-implantitis at 5 years, and at 9 years, I'm reading anything from 40 to 60% peri-implantitis at 9 years. Now, I see the pendulum coming back. And now, when you look at some three-rooted tooth with periodontal disease, and 10 years ago, you say, forget that. We'll just pull and place an implant. Well, that ain't the answer anymore. Talk to any periodontist. Now, it's coming back to do everything you can do to save that natural tooth. Retreat the root canal, go back to periodontal surgery, because if you think extracting a failed root canal with perio is just an automatic implant, you haven't been following them for 5 to 10 years. So there's still some, but here's what I don't understand. So the most money is extracting teeth and replacing with an implant. The second biggest money is working on my kid, my screaming kid. And then the third is root canals. And you're most likely to tell me when you walk out of school, I don't like molar endo. I'm not touching a screaming kid. And so then you want to be a general dentist and do cleanings, exams, and fillings and crowns. And then buy a bunch of expensive chairside milling stuff. And then you want to know why you're not poised for growth, why you're not a rich doctor in the richest country in the world. And so when you say you don't like extractions and you don't like implants and you don't like pediatric dentistry and you don't like endo, I mean, my next question is, then why didn't you go become an engineer? You should be a programmer, because humans are filled with blood and guts, and you just, once you get exposed to it. So I'm a big fan of those pulling the tooth, placing the implant. But then the second thing is this, and this is what is confusing me the most about these dentists. So in 1900, there were no specialties, and healthcare was 1% of GDP. At the end of the century, 2000, healthcare had grown to 14% of GDP, which means roughly that 14 cents of every dollar spent on healthcare, which roughly means 14 out of every 100 employees are in healthcare. Now it's up to 17%, but at the end of 2000, the MDs had 58 specialties and the dentists had 9. And now I see some of these dentists just saying, well, I'm going to add implants and sleep apnea and Invisalign. And it's like, are we going back to the 1900s? I mean, there's no such thing as a super doctor. So are there any things you don't do? I mean, you love implants and cosmetic. Are there things you don't do?
Well, when I started my career, I got out of school and I wanted to learn a lot about endo. Because I thought, I need to be able to offer services in my office. I need to be able to get patients out of pain. I need to be able to treat infection, right? So that was important to me. I wanted to learn more about endo. So I did a lot of root canal training. I did a lot of endos in my office. And it was a great service. It was a way for me to really learn, right? Because you learn really how to get patients numb. You really have to learn how to treat disease and pathology and study x-rays. And I mean, I think that's important. So for me, getting out of school, I just wanted to learn and do everything I could. That being said, I didn't get really any implant training in school. So a couple years into my career, I thought, I want to do this. I just don't know where to go. So that's where my kind of pathway started with, I want to take on more, because I figured out I liked surgery part more and more and more. And so I wanted to go down that way. Things that I don't do now, I have cone beam in my office. So I do defer some of those tricky root canals out if I know I can't successfully treat them. But if it's straightforward, I can check it on the cone beam, I can see it in my office, I'll do it. I'll make time for it, because I know that patient most likely doesn't want to go to a specialist. If I can complete the level of care in my office equal to the same, I'm going to do that, because I think it's important. But there are roles for specialties. I mean, there's things that are over your head. There's things that I can't do this as good as my specialist, and/or I can't do it in an amount of time to make money at it, right? So if I spend 3 hours on a molar root canal, it's better for me to send that patient out if I've got other patients to work on, right? So you do have to look at that time and efficiency. But yeah, there's things I refer out, and there's cases that are over my head. But when it comes to the surgical and
that's a great point, because if you know your specialist across the street has 50% overhead, like take an orthodontist, they got 50% overhead, but they schedule 15-minute appointments. And now you're across the street and you decide you're going to start doing ortho, and you don't have 50% overhead, you have 65% overhead, and your ortho appointments are 30 minutes. It's like basic, would that be basic algebra or trig or geometry?
It's not some sort of math.
Some sort of calculator shit should tell you that, so that.
But if I've got patients lined up.
But do you do ortho?
I don't do a lot of ortho. I do some minor Invisalign correcting, but that's just not where my passion is. So most of ortho I refer out, and a lot of people say, that's an easy money maker, get into it, do it, and it's like, I get that. It also has to be done correctly. And I also, at this point in my career, that's not where my passion lies, right? So,
but it's a lot of knowledge just to understand ortho.
It is,
and sleep apnea.
And so I don't want to take that on lightly and say, look, there's a vast majority of knowledge for ortho. I'm going to take an ortho continuum. I probably, even after that, probably still won't do a lot of ortho, but I need to understand it. So more ortho is what I refer out. partly due to the depth of knowledge, the overhead, having the right equipment, and that's just not where my passion lies. So,
yeah, I mean, just to, I started getting into sleep apnea with Dr. Michael Glass back in the day. I mean, God, there's people that's just all they do. It's so much information. But I think back to the business, back to my MBA training at ASU is that you gotta do it one procedure a week or you're never gonna reach critical mass. I see people that got all into implantology and they place an implant once, every other month, and they have no mathematical idea that they've lost several $100,000 with that implant idea. Same thing with Invisalign, man. If you're not doing an Invisalign case every single week, you're not gonna reach critical mass. You're not gonna go faster, easier. So I think the deal is, you got to be passionate enough to do it, and you got to get there to once a week, or you need to just stop doing it.
You need to have the cases
Furthermore, if I was going to go get some surgery, I don't want to go to a doctor who does this surgery every other month.
Yeah.
I mean, when I get my bypass stents and my coronary artery bypass grafts or whatever.
When I get my vasectomy, I want to know, hey, when was the last time you did one of these?
I got to tell you, the vasectomy is the only surgery I've ever had, and what was most interesting about that is everything on my operative to do a filling. I mean, all he used is a mirror, a shepherd's hook, and the crown and bridge scissors, and the 15 blade.
That's what was sitting on his tray, wasn't
He put the topical on. I think he thought it was a lubricant. He put on the topical, and 1 second later gave a shot, and then 1 second later made the deal. So I mean, but then he took that shepherd's hook, pulled out this white vas deferens, clipped it with the crown and bridge scissors, did the other side. I mean, it took him like 5 minutes, and it's like, damn, I could have done that myself, but knowing me, I would have cut the nerve. As having 3 children.
Is it the red wire or the blue wire? It's MacGyver, right? Which one is it? I don't know.
Has having 3 kids changed your views on pediatric dentistry? Do you do a lot of pediatric dentistry?
It hasn't.
Do you like pediatric dentistry?
I like kids. Sticking them in the face with needles is different. You got to have a different skill set for that. I can. I can work on kids. I can goof around. I'm not very stern in my office. Some people are real business like. These are people, right? And so they're the human side of it's important. Treating kids, you're treating a psyche just as much as you are in their mouth, and so I want to set them up for success. So for me, that's case by case dependent. So I will treat kids, but if they need more, and if they need that special environment, and if they need advanced care, I send a lot of that to pediatric because I don't, you hear horror stories. I don't want to ruin someone for life. But, if there's basic cleanings, a couple fillings, we'll knock those out in our office, for sure. So
same question to you. What are you doing and what are you not doing?
I only do dental implants and implant prosthetics. It's a dental implant center up in Rapid City. So prior to that, I was more into general dentistry. And one of the offices that I was at in Denver, Colorado, which I just moved from, was heavy into occlusion, TMD, more reconstructive type of dentistry, which helped me learn a lot about the prosthetic side of implant restorations. So I had done a GPR. I really liked surgery, thought about going into surgery. Something that, as far as you were asking Phil earlier, where does someone start when they first get out of dental school? I would say try to find a mentor while you're in dental school. I think I've just been so fortunate with some of my mentors helping guide me on where to go, because you look out there and you're like, where do I start? Do I start with Mish, or do I start with a maxi course, or do I start with implant pathway, or where do I start? And these things are $10,000-$20,000 to get into, and you're getting out of school and you're like, should I drop this money or not? Mm-hmm. And before you do that, find somebody and just go hang out at their office.
Yeah, man, you're talking about it. Where were you born and raised?
Davenport, Iowa.
So then how did you get to Colorado, and then what made you go back to South Dakota? You lived in 3 states. Are you running from the law? Or
it kind of sounds like
is the sheriff driving you around to these new states?
My grandpa was a dentist back in Iowa, and that's how I got into it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in Iowa. I had a lot of family. All my siblings had moved out to Colorado. Both of my parents have siblings out there. So that's how I ended up in Colorado. Less bugs, no humidity, better winters, you could say. And then one of my mentors, Mike Frymouth, who practices in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, I would just go over and hang out at his office on my days off and just watch him do surgery and pick his brain on cases. And just such a great guy. And that's how I ended up kind of getting up to Rapid City with Justin Moody.
Yeah, and that's why I say all the time. I mean, I don't. You got $500,000 in debt, and you're flying all the way across the country to go to a 2-day endo course, and you got to endodontist in your town, and you're just afraid. And I agree. What percent of the specialists think in fear and scarcity and don't want to show you what they know? And then what percent think in hope, growth, and abundancy? And I know abundancy is not a word. You've emailed me that twice now. But I'm saying, but that my book, Uncomplicate Business, the reason I called it Uncomplicate Business is because uncomplicated ain't a word.
Yeah.
So whenever it shows up squiggly, so if you type in, you go to Amazon, just type uncomplicate. I'm the only hillbilly that had a book. And if I ever wrote another book, it would be Living in Fear versus Hope, Growth, and Abundancy, because abundancy is not a word. But what percent of specialists do you think live in fear, and what percent are live in abundance?
I don't know, 70-30, you think? You think it's that high?
70 live in fear?
I think so.
I think it's 80-20.
Yeah.
What do you think it is?
Probably similar to that.
And 80-20 is a weird phenom.
It is.
And it
It's a
just
weird
always
number.
shows up. I mean, it just always shows up. So you go knock on 4 oral surgeon periodontist door, and they're all weird about it and everything. And then that 5th guy probably hangs out at bars, drinks beers, wants a buddy.
Yeah.
Come on down. They love the mentor stuff.
Yeah.
The word doctor comes from docere, Latin word docere, meaning to teach. Some people just love teaching. I always had another theory that I think at least for one day, every person that ever went to school for one day thought they wanted to be a teacher. And you find that dentist who likes to be a teacher and likes to be a mentor, and it's free. But what I like about it the most is when you get in trouble,
you got a buddy.
You got a buddy in your town that can fix it.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen.
And
I don't care who you are.
And the reason they think in abundance is because that oral surgeon, that periodontist, that orthodontist, right now he's getting nothing from you. And you're not going to do all your ortho. If you're orthodontist teaching Invisalign, you're not going to do all your fixed wire.
Yeah.
Sure as hell not going to do class 2s and class 3s and just people you don't like. My number one referral is just, I just don't like you. You know what I mean? It's like, you should go to an endodontist to get that retreated. Because you're kind of, I'm thinking, because I wouldn't want a doctor working on me that didn't like me or had his best intentions. And some people, they come in, they're mean to your staff.
Sometimes it's hard to
they're rude.
It's hard to treat everybody.
Yeah, I mean, So, but when you got $500,000 student loans, you're going to be treating a lot of people you don't like and doing a lot of procedures that
you can do a lot of things you don't like at first. I mean, and I spent a lot of time doing that, and I still do today. I mean, that's just part of being in dentistry. I mean, you're going to have a workflow that. Sometimes you got good days.
So let's get to the next question. America's very different than Europe. Like when you go to Europe, the owners of the companies lecture, and when you go to the largest dental meeting in the world, there's no speakers. The FDI is the IDF meeting, International Dentist.
FDI.
FDI.
Okay.
No, not
IDS.
Not the one in Cologne.
IDS.
IDS. It's is it? When is the next meeting?
It's every other year, I think.
Yeah. So is
we
it?
We just had it last year.
You had it in 2017?
17, I think it was 17, yep. So
2017?
I think it'd be 19.
Yeah, the International Dental Show.
And when's the next one? March of?
It looks like, 12 to 16, March 2019.
Yep.
March
19.
March 2019.
Yeah. So next
March 2019.
Yeah. So it's every other year.
So it's coming out. And by the way, I know a dozen dentists that are millionaires from going to that meeting on vacation. You know why?
No.
No, they go there and it's the biggest dental meeting in the world. Over 100,000 dentists go. There's no lectures.
Yeah.
And they're walking, they see this really neat cement or this thing or whatever, and it's some company from, could be South Korea, it could be from Japan, some small startup, and they're like, I'd like to get in the U.S. market. Would you consider being the distributor for the U.S.? So then they just write up a contract, and usually they're all going to ask for a minimum sales after 2 or 3 years to say, okay, well, after 2 or 3 years, you
have to be selling this, or
you have to be selling, this much money every year.
Yeah.
And then they come back and they know the key opinion leaders. They send it to Gordon and see if CRA will look at it, or their dental schools, or samples, or post cases on Dental Town. And the next thing you know, if you picked up, it's Chinese math. If you pick up 1% of the bonding agent market in America, you're a millionaire.
Yeah.
And instruments, hand instruments, and so when you're a little company and you're from Russia or Poland or anywhere, you don't have the means to hire an office in America, and then they've never been to America. Where are they going to go, and what city, and all that stuff? And they come back, and it becomes that dentist's passion and hobby, whatever. Sure. But there's some guys, you would not believe some of these huge products that you use. that all goes through a dentist who found it. And then a lot of them, all you got to do is call Patterson, Shine, Benko, Burkhardt, and they're going to add the SKU. So now you're in their catalogs and magazines. But what I was going back to the difference in the Europeans the most is the Europeans, if they want to learn about your implant system, they figure, well, you're the CEO, it's your company. Who's thinking more about this implant than you? They don't want to go to some dentist middleman and who's an expert in everything from A to Z in thousands of companies. The Europeans, they don't like the American middleman lecture. And then when I go to those companies, like go to 3M, go to their R&D in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and they'll take you to a grease board, and they'll show you what people are writing and saying. And there's like 60 people there with a PhD in organic chemistry. And this dentist, you just walk up to him and say, draw me HEMA on the board. Just draw the organic frick. They would know their ass from second base. And so they really, really hate the bullshit misinformation middleman. So in the Europeans, but when you went to FDI last time I went there, they had 175 implant systems.
Yeah.
And you guys, I mean, you got a podcast, you guys specialize this. So she's 25, and in America, so much of the training is implant company sponsored.
It can be, yeah.
So I'd say,
a lot of it is.
Yeah, I'd say the majority of it is.
Yeah.
So help her reduce that list of 175 implant companies down to, something manageable. How should she wrap her mind around that?
Yeah, and that's kind of something I'm trying to tackle right now. I'm trying to put some programs together for that because. I kind of look at my job now where I'm at in my career. It's like, okay, I learn from a lot of people, right? And you kind of stand on the shoulders of the people who led before you. And I kind of feel like my job now should be to kind of be that.
By the way, that stand on your shoulders quote from Sir Isaac Newton is one of the most misrepresented quotes in history.
It might be.
You know why?
I don't.
Because when he came out with his calculus in 1687, another guy was right behind him. Same thing with Einstein. When Einstein came out with his relativity, there were some other German scientists right behind him. Same thing with evolution. So all these greatest people were just crossed the finish line by a micron. Well, Sir Isaac Newton spent his whole career crushing the guy right behind him, and when he says, "I stand on the shoulders of great men," he meant
stepping him.
He was stepping on that one guy.
Well, I don't want to.
So that quote is like
on
this massive asshole. But everybody's like, "Sir Isaac Newton, I stand on the shoulders of the great men." No, he was standing on the shoulders of some guy that he was trying to destroy his reputation his whole life. But anyway, I'm sorry.
I actually kind of like that more now, but no, I don't want to. I don't want to do that to my colleagues necessarily.
But I think it's funny when people think, like, well, Einstein was the greatest guy that was ever born. Yeah, by about 90 days.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It's good to be first. Everybody knows that, right?
I know. Who's the second guy to stand on the moon?
Nobody knows.
Who's the second guy to sit on the moon?
Yeah, who knows?
Neil was first.
And then
who cares about the other 12?
Buzz?
No, I think Buzz was the captain of the ship. I don't think he ever even went out.
He even got out. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, nobody.
Coca-Cola beat Pepsi, came out first, and they still number one market share.
Second.
It tastes better too.
But I think so. So where I look at it now is, my job is to kind of help lead.
It was Buzz.
Yeah. So my job is to kind of help lead the next pathway, right? Lead people now because I've been out almost 10 years. I've taken almost every implant course. I've placed every system. I've toured most facilities, right? I've gone to all the implant manufacturing facilities. I've met everybody there is to meet. I've studied from most people there is to study from. So I kind of look at my job now as
that's why I called you a legend.
I know. Well, I'm not a legend,
you
but
are. You did.
But I try to expose myself to what's real, what's the best, and then try to pass that to other people, right? Because there's so many people that want to get in implantology, but they don't know where to go. It takes a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of commitment. What I want to help is steer people towards the right direction, right? So almost like, you want to go on a vacation, right? And you have 1 week out of the year, and you have X amount of money. Like, the last thing you want to do is go someplace that's a bust.
Now you meant to say my ex has all the money.
Your ex has all the money and has all the time. So, like, when I'm planning our family vacation, we have... Okay, I don't take a lot of time off work, so I got 1 week. I'm going to carve out with the kids. I want to go somewhere nice. I want to have an enjoyable time. So maybe like a travel agent would help you say, look, for a small fee, I'll make sure your vacation goes well, right? Because I could send you to Hawaii, or I could send you to, I don't know, South Dakota, right? Where do you want to go vacation?
It's nice in the summers.
And but it's like, okay, you get 1 week, right? Or I'm going to take X amount of money this year to devote to CE, and I'm going to do these 4 CE trips, or do this much time. So you have time and money to commit to CE. I want to help people enter implantology successfully, right? And so I think that starts with having good mentors, going to good CE, and getting with good systems that are GP friendly, right? Because some of the older systems were more specialist driven, right? And it was hard to kind of get into the real knowledge of, where to go, what to do, how to learn this. I tried knocking on Nobel's door for years in Straumann, and they said, you're a GP, you're placing 20 a year, you're not really worth our time. And then you drift to some of these other implant companies like, BioHorizons or the Han Implant or Implant Direct, which were basically set up for the general dentist, right? And so I direct a lot of people sometimes to these weekend starter courses, right? To a Glidewell course, to an Implant Direct course, to a weekend course that somebody's putting on, because I think that's a good first exposure. I think that's a good introduction to, here's a motor, here's a handpiece, here's how to drill an osteotomy, here's how to put in an implant. That's a good 101, right? Those are good GP-friendly systems. They're not overly expensive, they're cost efficient, and they want to learn to train general dentists. And then after that, we can graduate them up. Okay, we can say, okay, well, maybe you're ready for a maxi course, maybe you're ready for the implant pathway, maybe you're ready for the Mish Institute. Okay, that's the next level of commitment, right? So you get your feet wet, you learn that you like this, you go home, you place 20, take a couple weekend courses. Next year, you dive into a continuum. You commit a whole year, maybe X amount of money, and go deeper. And then after that, we can get you into some live hands-on training workshops to take it to the next level. Learn advanced grafting, learn advanced procedures. And so there's multiple options, but my job, I feel now, is to help steer people into that and help find what's best for them.
As you get older and older and older, you recognize patterns. Mm-hmm. When you're young, you think you understand what causes markets to go up or down, or currencies, swifts and values. But as you get older, you realize there's so many. You know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. But you start to recognize patterns. And the pattern of you got to do it once a week to make money off it. Yeah. I recognize that pattern solid. The other pattern that I recognize is every single person I know who's in the profit zone in implants, meaning they're placing 1 a week, they've reached critical mass, they love it, they're doing good, always has a close physical relationship with a rep. A human rep. Yeah. And a lot of these guys will tell you, well, the reason I use this implant company, because I'm in love with the rep, and he's there. And it's not just their profound knowledge. It's just not that they've been in the room seeing all these surgeries. But like the rep here, he's always arranging meetings after work at bars. Yeah. So you get to go there, and it's 5-6 dentists pounding some beers, watching the game, talking implant, and all those, that really, so do you agree with that or not?
There's definitely some relational value there. I mean, absolutely. I think you need to partner yourself with the correct team, right? And the correct team means a lot of things. I mean, you got to have a great staff, right? You got to have a good lab. You have to have a good implant partnership. Now what that means to you is going to be different things, right? So maybe that's, I have to have a strong rep who's going to, because at first it's like, God, how do I even connect these parts, right? What's this motor? What are all these instruments that they've never seen before? And now you have to, be an expert in using them. So they're going to help you with that. They're also going to help you find more CE of it options, right? They're going to help you say, hey, this guy over here is killing it. Why don't you figure out what he's doing, right? I mean, so they're going to expose you to things because you're in your office every day. These guys are in other people's offices every day, so they see things that you don't see, right? So I think having a rep's an important thing. I don't think it's a deal breaker, right? So, I place a lot of Han implants and Implant Direct as well. And the Han doesn't have a local rep. Implant Direct does. But I'm far enough in my career now, I don't need the over-the-shoulder, calling up, asking questions. Hey, I don't know how to plug this in or do that. Where a local
now, Han, he's a general dentist out of Ohio.
But he's a general dentist out of Ohio.
Yeah.
And he's helped mentor me in some ways, and so I love what he's doing. I love his implants.
What episode of your show is he on?
Gosh,
you're supposed to memorize.
I know. I want to say something somewhere close to 60.
It's a can't miss show.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And congrats on that issue. That was a really
He's a
fun issue.
legend in implantology. He's a general dentist, and he made his whole career out of his passion for implants. He designed Stereos, which Nobel bought and turned his implant that he designed into the Nobel Replace, which was the #1 selling and placed implant for 10 years. And then, but there was still that conflict with him and Nobel about, you're just a general dentist, teaching general dentist. And so I think, that kind of pushed him away. And then he developed his Han implant, which I like because it's got aggressive threads. It's well thought out.
But back specifically to the Nobel Biocare, specifically, it is absolutely un-American when you don't have specialists in 19,000 towns to say that you're only going to sell to a specialist. I mean, so I know I grew up in a flyover state, Kansas.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were born in a flyover state. You still live in the flyover state.
I'm in there, yeah.
And so, these great minds on the coast, who always know what's best for the heartland, it's crazy. You realize 10% of all the towns in Kansas and Iowa and North and South Dakota and Nebraska don't even have one dentist. And so whenever you start saying we're only going to work with a specialist, that other half of America, you piss that half off. That the last election was that. I mean, isn't that way some of the last election?
Yeah.
The other half of America just said, I know you're not supposed to talk about religion, politics, sex, or violence, but the other half of America said, you know what?
I'm tired of what's going on here. We're going to make a change just for change.
Yeah, and the other side would say, well, your guy's crazy. That guy's crazy. And it's like, dude, you're crazy. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I placed Nobel for my first 5 years, but I kept knocking on my rep's door to say, I need more. And he's like, I'm kind of handcuffed. There's only so much I can do. So that's where I dove off. In these
can you still never named a brand? And I know it's called channel conflict because we're all friends with all these guys. So if you sit there and said, I recommend Noble Biocare or Strawman or whatever, you'll get a call from there.
Well, no, and I don't think there's one right magic bullet. Right?
But you got a short list? I mean,
that's what I told you. My short list would be Implant Direct. It would be the Han implant. It would be BioHorizons.
BioHorizons out of Birmingham.
Yep.
Alabama. Implants Direct out of Southern Cal.
Yep.
Jerry Resnick. Did you ever...
He's on my list.
He's on your list. What?
He's on my list coming up.
To podcasts?
Yeah.
That guy's a flipping 3-time genius.
He is. So he's got.
Talk about the companies he started. What was his first company? Corvent, which he sold to Dentsply.
There was. I'm trying to think of the name of the Calcitech.
Calcitech?
I think was in there somewhere, and then he.
And who did he sell that to?
I think they sold that to Zimmer, maybe.
Zimmer? Why is Zimmer spinning off their implant division?
I don't think they're making money on it.
So they're not making money?
And I think they're too medically focused.
Yeah.
I don't think they're making money on it.
Yeah. I mean, that really surprised me.
Me too.
And one other thing I'd ask you about, do you know which implant company is the biggest as by units of implants sold?
I would guess it's Noble Biocare.
Straumann with Neodent.
Straumann. Well,
it's Straumann from their mergers and acquisitions.
It is. So if you ask which implant or which company, I mean, so now that's becoming a different issue.
So
right?
Straumann's been rolling.
Straumann's bought Neodent, which is the biggest worldwide, probably. But then,
the thing is, Neodent's out of Brazil.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in Brazil, all the dentists place implants.
Everybody does. Yeah.
Everybody does.
And same with South Korea, right?
And didn't they also buy MIS? Out of Israel?
I don't know that they did.
Can you see if Straumann bought MIS or just Google who else Straumann MIS?
To my knowledge,
which is a cool name. You know what MIS stands for?
Make it simple.
Make it simple. That's pretty cool. But anyway, BioHorizons. I mean, Implants Direct. They're buying all the ceramic implant companies are all getting gobbled up because there's rumor on the street. There's some people who seriously are starting to think that peri-implantitis could be very easily linked to titanium. That titanium is not as inert as everybody thinks it is. Mm-hmm. And there are very smart people who are saying, I'm not seeing peri-implantitis on ceramic implants. Yeah. And then you sit there and say, well, that's bullshit or whatever, but look at the big companies. Yeah. Money matters. Money's the answer. What's the question? They're gobbling up. Straumann bought a big. So, what have you heard these? Have you heard anybody talk about ceramic implants not having peri-implantitis? Are you hearing that on the street?
I'm not hearing as much of that, but I know there's a bigger push coming for that.
But have you ever heard it?
I have heard that, yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever heard it?
I haven't heard it regarding implants, but if you listen to lectures as far as talking about titanium abutments versus zirconia abutments and the tissue response that you get as far as through that attachment zone, there are certain people that feel like they're getting a healthier long-term connection with the zirconia than the titanium. But they both have their pros and cons. So
Oh yeah, everything the world does.
Yeah.
Everything's a trade-off.
Well, back to
you'll
the merger.
you'll never
Yeah.
find if you make a decision and you don't know the trade-off. It just means you know what you know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
There's a trade-off. I get it. It's an engineering maxim. You cannot have a best friend who's an engineer who will find the trade-off and just ordering French fries
Absolutely.
they always think in trade-offs. You know.
But with the mergers, I mean, you've got Danaher that owns Implant Direct, and they also bought Nobel Biocare, right? So they're in the process of kind of merging those.
Danaher bought Noble Biocare and Implant Direct.
So what's going on is a lot of these big companies now are having a premium line and a value line. So Nobel and Implant Direct. So there's a premium line and a value line, right? So Straumann bought Neodent to have a value line. So there's Straumann, which is their premium line, and Neodent with the value line. So that they can now say, okay, I can sell to my specialist group, we have the premium line because this is the gold standard. This is what works, and our stuff, is better than yours. But then they're noticing, okay, more GPs are getting in, more clinics are getting in, more GPOs. So we want to have a value line. And
Okay. So I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire.
Yeah.
This is Dentistry Uncensored. So,
Absolutely.
so the biggest company in implants by units sold has their premium line Straumann,
Mm-hmm.
and then they bought their value line Neodent. The largest, it's hard to say if Danaher's the largest dental company in the world because they're not all dental. They're not a pure play. I think they're 70% medical. But Danaher, out of Washington, D.C., huge, bought Noble Biocare, the premium line, and bought Implants Direct, the value line.
Yeah.
Okay, well, she's 25. I mean, you're a patient. I mean, you got $500,000 student loans. If you were with Straumann, would you use the Neodent and save money, or would you do the premium Straumann? If you were a Danaher, would you use the premium line No Biocare, or would you use Implants Direct?
I think, looking back on it, I would go in with one of the value lines, not because of the price. And I go back to what I was trying to touch on earlier. More, they're going to be more GP friendly. Now, what I mean by that is you're going to get more interaction with your rep because they're used to selling to GPs. You're going to get more CE opportunities because they're going to want to train general dentists more on the surgical aspect. Because Nobel, still to this day, hasn't wrapped their mind around the thought of we need to sell to more generalists. We need to get more general dentists in the game. They're still, we sell to specialists, and implant dentistry belongs in the oral surgeon group. Well, that's misguided. That's old school.
King and queen shit.
So
Royalty shit.
So you're not going to get as far with that company with the support that you need. So that's why I say stick with the GP friendly line, a BioHorizons, a Han, and Implant Direct because
say those three again. Say those three again.
I think BioHorizons, Han, and Implant Direct would be the three that I say look at those. And the good thing about BioHorizons is it's
BioHorizons on Implant Direct. So Implant Direct was the value of
Nobel.
of Danaher.
Danaher, yeah.
And Han is
It's its own entity. It's sold through Glidewell, which
Does Glidewell own Han? Or
no, they don't. They manufacture it.
So Glidewell manufactures Han.
Yeah.
But they don't own. They don't own.
I can't answer for sure on that. To be
Okay.
honest with you.
Well,
they may.
Jim
they may have some rights
Glidewell's
there.
100%
Yeah.
Irish, so I'm sure he bought it.
Yeah, and he probably does.
And then had a shot of whiskey.
Yeah.
BioHorizon. Now, do they have a premium line, value line, or what would you call
They
them?
are offering a new value line. Chris, I'll let you talk about that. You more know about them, but they've always been kind of a middle high value, but lower price than the others.
But I just want to say one thing because when you're talking, the majority of our audience is international. There's 2 million dentists on Earth.
Yeah.
There's only 211,000 living Americans with an active license today.
Sure.
150,000 are GPs, 32 hours a week or more. 30,000 specialists, 32 hours a week or more. But there's 211,000. But that's only 10% of the world's dentists. So we have more viewers in Asia than America. But the one thing culture about America is Henry Ford didn't invent the car. there were, I think, 70 some car manufacturers in Europe, but they were small teams making a car for the king, the queen, the pope, the cardinal, the rich. America's culture, no one really, we didn't have kings and queens. It was Henry Ford making a car for the average man. So the culture of America is not to suck up to rich people. And they always say, if you focus on the masses, you'll make so much money, you'll eat with the classes. Yeah. But if you focus on the classes, you're going to go broke and you'll be living with the masses. So America is always a, how do you build the biggest middle class? And they don't have any, I remember when Ronald Reagan was president, he wouldn't even go greet the King of England. I mean, the prince or the king. Remember they came and every president always had rolled out the red carpet. And Reagan basically said, you know, he's from the Lucky Sperm Club, you know, earn it. Yeah. You know, we don't believe in royalty. And but anyway, so on that
rant. On that note.
Yeah, so jumping in on
the value line.
So BioHorizons does not have two separate lines. It's not like they bought another company or they say, hey, this is our premium or this is our value. You can have a number of options as far as their implants go, where you can find a more expensive one that potentially has more technology behind it, like platform switching or their trademarked laser lock technology. I do know that they have a couple other implants coming out later this year that maybe you're not going to get some of those features, but they're less expensive. So something that maybe you want to use in the anterior zone to make sure the tissue looks great that you don't necessarily need in the first molar spot, you probably don't need the more expensive implant. So they do have some options there. Mm-hmm. And their support, kind of going back to your question as far as, you know, which one do you go with? Something that a lot of people don't talk about that I think is really important is what are the prosthetic components that you're going to get with it. So when you're first starting out, don't just look at the surgical part. That's where everybody kind of focuses. Say, okay, well, let me check out your prosthetic kit as well, because you got to restore all these implants that you're placing. So don't forget about that part of it.
So I want to, you made me think of a lot of questions. Number one, earlier when we talked about periimplantitis, ceramic abutments. Remember, one of the most horrible things you can ever do is think that all humans are humans. Take a ring. It is a well-known fact that people that look like me, Irish, Northern, Scandinavian, you put on a ring that's not pure gold, silver, palladium, platinum, things that don't react with oxygen at room temperature, 1 atmospheric pressure, you start getting a tattoo. Because people like me that look like us have more acidic skin pulling the metal out. You don't really see that in Asians, Africans, and South Americans. And that's where they're going back to this titanium where, you know, that titanium, it may end up being very different for an Asian or an African versus an Irishman. So that tattooing thing, and that's something I've always asked my patients back in the day when there was such a different cost between porcelain to gold like Captech versus a porcelain to base metal. I'd say, if you wear costume jewelry, does it tattoo your finger? And she says it does. Well, we ain't going there. And I've even seen it in where someone has a big sub-G MOD amalgam in the back, and they got a tattoo around there. And I have not seen that in an Asian, African, American Indian. I have not seen that. They're always Northern European.
Light skinned.
Yeah, light skin. And then another thing is when you talk about the reps not being as friendly to you from, say, a Noble Biocare.
And I don't mean friendly. I just mean they can't provide you the care that you're going to need.
Well,
they're focused on a different game.
It's called channel conflict. Like a lot of these companies will tell you off the record. They won't tell me on the podcast, but they'll tell me before and after. Yeah. When they go into these states and they're an ortho rep, there's a lot of orthodontists finds out if you're calling on a GP, get out of my office.
Yep, absolutely.
So they have to
that still exists.
Yeah, so so they have to have separate channels to talk to low-life dirtbags like us than the glorified orthodontist who walks on water. And
I've had implant reps tell me that. And like, hey, I like you, I like what you're doing here, I'm trying to help you, but like I'm kind of limited.
And then the other thing is, 25% of these people are still in dental school. And you just said two terms that you got to go explain because they're like, what is that? You said platform switching and laser lock technology. Please explain exactly what platform switching is and then what laser lock technology is.
So platform switching is a generic term that, or an umbrella term that kind of encompasses a concept of using a moving the connection of the implant and the abutment away from the bone. So my understanding of where this kind of started was that 3i had they were making a wider diameter implant, like a 5 or 6 millimeter, but they didn't have an abutment that was big enough. So they made a platform that was 4 millimeters because that fit their biggest abutment. So all of a sudden the connection between the implant and the abutment was 2 millimeters away from the edge of the bone. The lecturers or the literature or people that you go listen to, like Tarnow or Coyce or someone, they'll say that one of the advantages of doing that is to take that connection of as far as micromotion or an area that could potentially be aggravating to the bone and move it away, so you get a better bone response and connection around the implant. The laser lock is something that's proprietary to BioHorizons, and that is where they make these very small microchannels that allow connective tissue attachment to the top of the implant, which they say gives you a better soft tissue response.
And who's the legend we podcasted out of France? Oh my gosh.
Hilt Tatum?
What?
Hilt Tatum?
Hilt Tatum.
Yeah.
Hilt
I
Tatum.
just know that because I just released my podcast with him last week.
Nice.
So, yeah.
When I got out of school, before you two were born, he was the biggest.
After we were
Well, what year were you born?
81.
81? What year?
83.
Oh my God! I was out of high school before that. I was in
No,
college.
I'll
when
give
you
you
were
that.
born.
I'll give you
I
that,
was in
yeah.
I was in Creighton 83. But Hill Tatum was the man,
Yeah.
and
he still is.
And he's done more surgeries than anybody. But he is convinced that the number one cause of periimplantitis is they didn't get an attached gingiva all the way around. And when he does his surgery, it's all about attach. That's why a guided surgery and punching through the tissue just makes that guy cringe. Yeah. He's like, be a surgeon. Yeah. And so he so meticulously peels back the attached gingiva and so meticulously sews that up. He says, if you got an attached gingiva all the way around there, I don't have periimplantitis. And he says when he sees periimplantitis, there's always a violation of the attached gingiva. Yeah. And so he might be seriously onto that. But that's not going to rule out ceramic implants because, again, I really do think that if you tattoo on costume jewelry, that this titanium could be an issue. What is you think is the another problem with the implant companies is a lot of people feel they're just nickeled and dimed. I mean, everything they buy, every little screw. Yeah. So they kind of like to go to like a package deal. Where I'm just going to buy it and everything's in there. Do you see that?
I see that trend coming along. I mean, I think Implant Direct made a lot of waves because they would sell an implant. They say, hey, it's direct. Obviously, you just order it and you send it right out. But they made waves because they put the cover screw and a healing abutment in the package with the implant. And that was groundbreaking because with Nobel at the time, you buy the implant for $450, you get just the implant. And then you have to buy the cover screw.
Right.
What if you're doing... what are you doing, primary closure or not? Well, I might need a healing abutment also, and I might need a impression coping, and then so by the time you stack all that up, I mean you're not thinking about the implant cost.
And it wasn't just the money; it was the pain in the ass of ordering all this.
Somebody's got to order it. You got to be responsible for stocking it, and then like Chris said, you're not focusing on putting in implants. I mean, we get nitpicky about focusing on implants. Is that perfect? What kind of implant? Where is it placed? Patients want teeth. So I look at the end of my day, and like you said, you got to think packaging things together. Okay, how much does the implant cost? How much time does that cost? What labs can I restore this with? Is there easy restorability connections? What kind of connection is it? If you have to, order parts from Germany because they're the only ones that will restore your Volvo, like you can't just take it down to the local auto body shop and they swap in your Chevy parts. So you got to think about the parts to restore it. How you're going to put teeth on it. Those things all come together when I think of packaging and cost. Having a good implant that has a good surgery component, having an implant that has a good prosthetic component, having parts readily available, having parts that aren't hard to order, aren't expensive, considering what you're charging and costs are, and then having a lab that can easily restore that. So those are things you all need to think about ahead of time before you just start slugging in screws.
You mentioned Coyce when you're talking about your platform switching. I love Coyce, man. I think he's one of the greatest instructors in the history of dentistry. Did you know he's 100% Greek?
Didn't know that.
You know what his secret is on his kind of bridge? He sprays them with Windex first
Nice.
before he seats them. Did you see my big fat Greek wedding?
No, I didn't.
Oh, did you see that movie?
Yeah, with the zits and everything.
It was the funniest movie on Greeks.
But I knew you were.
The old grandpa, he solved everything. If you had a rash, he'd spray Windex.
on it, yeah.
I asked Grace one time, I said, do you ever use Windex? He busted laughing so hard. Another thing is different from 30 years ago. 30 years ago, the reason you wanted cone beam technology and CAT scans was to figure out how you get the exact longest implant in there without hitting the nerve.
You want to put a 16 in every spot.
Oh,
yeah.
and if you could get an 18 in, you were all that in a bag of chips. And if you could sink a 20, they were, your other dentists were, bowing down. But it seems like the implants are getting shorter and fatter, like me.
Oh, I was going to say, that's good for me, because I'm trending that way, too. Yeah.
So talk about length versus shorter and fatter.
On implants, right? Okay. So
Brian, can you hand me a donut?
Yeah, give me a donut. I think the research is definitely showing, we don't need all that length, right? There's some people that say anything, longer than 6 millimeters, you're not getting any benefit from. The average implant I place in my office is a 4.3 by 10.
4.3 by 10.
Yeah, and I think.
And what system is that? I know you don't want to say, but what you just said 4.3 by 10. So
either a Han or an Implant Direct.
Han or Implant Direct?
I place both of those.
Han or Implant Direct?
They have the same connection prosthetically, so it's like apples to apples.
And same question to you. What do you mostly place in?
I only place bios.
You only place bio?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 4.3 by 10. That's a workhorse number. Some people are like, well, why do you place a 10 if you only need 8? Well, let's just say, God forbid, I get a millimeter or two bone loss, but the implant's still healthy and it's still stable. I still have 8 millimeters of implant holding it in bone. If you put in a 6 millimeter implant, you have 2 millimeters of bone loss. You've only got 4 millimeters of bone. Companies are making shorter implants now. I think it's good because if you got short mandible area and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to try to do an onlay block graft in the posterior mandible. That's a pretty tough deal to do. So why not just put a 6 millimeter implant back there and call it good? So I think those are a good use. I don't think 6 millimeters needs to be the standard of care. I think there's indications where if you're doing an immediate implant, you have to go longer to get that primary stability. So there's definitely options where you're going to want shorts, you're going to want longs, but you need to understand when and where both are indicated.
Another reason why you got to do something once a week to reach critical mass is we haven't even discussed the other very overwhelming things: a sinus lift,
yeah, absolutely,
and bone grafting.
Absolutely.
That's why when you say to me, I'm going to learn add implants and Invisalign and sleep apnea, I'm like, slow down, Spanky.
Yeah.
Those orthodontists spent 3 years to do that. Implants, just let's say you don't even know how to place implant, just to learn everything you know about bone grafting. That's overwhelming. And then you're going to add sleep apnea. Slow down. What are you passionate about? Follow the money, but can you rant about?
I can rant about that. Whenever I get probably like you get 1,000 people asking you 1,000 questions a day. People reach out to me all the time, so I get a million.
How do they reach out to you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
They usually reach out to me on Facebook because it's easy, right? And then I'll respond to people the best that I can.
How do they find you on Facebook?
They just look me up. And I've also got my dental implant practices page where I post things that I'm doing in my office so people can see what a real world implantology looks like.
It's
not always.
Sounds like he's not going to give you his email address. That's what I'm going to get to.
Oh, I definitely can. Yeah, it's Philip with one L, PHILIP, J Gordon GORDON at gmail.com.
Philip J Gordon at gmail.com.
Yeah, people can reach out to me anytime.
What does the J stand for?
John.
Philip John.
That's my dad's name. John.
Right on. Okay, but back to implants. Back to science.
So I tell people, there's like, where should I get started with implantology? And I always say, well, how good are your basic surgery skills? You need to be very good at getting patients numb, learning to extract every tooth in the mouth, and doing basic grafting and suturing. Okay, learn that first. And then let's talk implants, because those are the foundational skills that if you can master those techniques, then we can move up to implants. And so I say, okay, let's go to a 101 course. Let's buy you an implant kit. Let's train you how to extract and graft. So for 6 months, all you're going to do is go back to your practice and extract and graft teeth that you can't save. And then you're going to go to maybe 2 or 3 implant courses over that 6 months, right? And then after that, you'll have 30 or 40 sites that you've set up ideal to come back and place implants in. And by then you'll have taken some courses, got more familiar with it, and you're ready to start placing some basic implants now. So I tell people, slow down. Let's start with basic oral surgery.
Slow down, Spanky.
Slow down, Spanky. I throw the Spanky in there just for you, and I say, let's get good at extracting and grafting and suturing every tooth in the mouth. And then you're ready to take it to the next level. Now let's start putting things back in, right? Let's get good at drilling in bone and threading in implants, because you're used to manipulating tissue, you're used to working in blood, you're used to that surgical process where, maybe they're not as comfortable with that at first, right? So learn on the basics and then take it from there.
And what are you grafting with?
I'm grafting with mineralized irradiated bone. So it's
Cadaver bone?
Yeah, cadaver bone.
Yeah. So, has the price been coming down off that all?
It definitely has. Yeah, you can get some good bone, half cc of that for a premolar or central, or a 1 cc for a molar can be $70 to $80. So that's not.
So why does so $70 and is there is insurance paying on that grafting?
That's very dependent.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
what are you
dependent.
charging for a bone grafting?
I don't charge a lot for mine. I look at it as a service to me. I basically cover my cost and a little. So I'll charge for an extraction. So sometimes it's surgical, sometimes it's basic. I'll charge for a graft for those grafts. I mean, my grafting is low. I mean, I think the standard across the country might be $400 or $450. I'm charging like $250, $275 for the graft. But then I'm also charging about $250 for a membrane. So by the time I do extraction, graft, and membrane, I'm close to.
And what membrane are you using?
In the molars, I'll use a cytoplast, like a non-resorbable, and that helps cover the area and helps grow keratinized tissue. We're talking about setting up soft tissue, ideally. In the front, sometimes it's just a collar plug or a resorbable membrane.
And what are you grafting with?
Some sort of allograft mainly. Yeah.
Okay, well, you said allograft. So explain an allograft, a xenograft. Explain the terminology.
So autograft is from the patient. Allograft is from some other patient.
From the species.
Yeah.
Zombie bone from allograft.
So an autograft's from yourself, an allograft's from the same species,
Yeah.
which is why I use cow bone.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then xenograft.
Xenograft is that cow bone. Yeah.
Xenograft, from the species, and then xenograft would be from another species.
Right.
And then there's
Synthetics.
And then, so what do they call them, the synthetic grafts?
I think just synthetics. I don't know. Yeah.
No, there's another term for
Yeah,
it.
there is. I don't place them, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even go that route.
It is kind of interesting. I mean, I know a lot of at least half of my family tree does not believe in evolution in any sense, but it was amazing looking at 100-million-year-old sea coral creatures at a scanning electron microscope and human bone. I mean, that's the same plant.
Yeah.
I mean, that is amazing. Have you
Yeah.
ever seen those pictures?
No, but I've seen seashells tapped into people's jaw bones that have integrated.
Oh yeah, I guarantee you got a uncle or cousin that was married to a seashell somewhere back in the tree in the chain somewhere. Yeah, mermaids.
You got to go way back, but it's there.
You got to go way back, but it's there.
20. Was it?
I can't believe our show's an hour. We were already 10 minutes over the hour, and you got to go back to class.
I do. Yeah.
But anything I wasn't smart enough to ask you?
No, I mean, my thing is let's help people get into it the right way, to where you can, like you said, get comfortable, get successful, learn to do it right, and then advance it to critical mass. And I think there's points along the way for everybody for that. There's not one system, there's not one course, right? I can't give you a magic bullet, but what I try to do at my point is, my dental implant practices program is help pick you up and lead you to that direction. All right.
Now, are you teaching in implant pathways?
I'm not teaching there. No, I'm taking it as a participant. I'm going there. I've been placing implants for 7 or 8 years. I place a lot of implants, but I came up here to train with Mike and Justin so that they can help advance me in my career. They're 10 years ahead of me. They can teach and show me things that I'm not doing currently, and I'm 10 years ahead of the new grad. I can show them things. So it's surround yourself with people that are willing to teach and show you. Pick a good system. There's 4 or 5 good systems out there that are focused on the general dentist. There's 4 or 5 good implant pathways, AID maxi courses, 101 weekend courses. Go to all of them and learn from everybody, and then figure out what's right for you.
Find you a periodontist oral surgeon in your town. Find yourself a mentor. Find yourself a rep that can connect you. It's like what I love. Interesting thing, for just a couple of years back, Amazon has a booth at the Greater New York meeting.
Yeah.
And everybody just thought, whoa, because when he bought Whole Foods, Kroger's stock tanked. I mean, he just has to look at an industry and the stock goes down. And it was funny because at 55, I've seen all these rodeos twice. When we started Dental Town, everybody said, "Why don't you sell supplies?" And it's like, well, we didn't, because Dental Town was the same reason people still buy supplies. Dental Town was no dentist ever has to practice solo again.
Yeah.
And the rep was their outside world. And I had the head of 3M Dental. They sell $1.1 billion a year of dental stuff. And I said, "Are you ever going to start selling on Amazon?" He goes, everybody asks me that, but no dentist has ever asked us that. And like my rep, she does the ordering with Jan, and I don't do any of that stuff. But the only time I ever talk to her, it'd be like I'll be reading some out of file. Yeah. I'll say, does any endodontist use that? She can just rattle them off. Same thing with that rep. You got an implant rep. She'll be able to tell you every periodontist, oral surgeon, and then she also can scan their personality for you and say, "Oh yeah, Justin. Oh hell yeah." You could go move in his dental office. By the way, look, Justin's bought a house down here. He's from what city in North Dakota? No, he's South
Rapid
Dakota.
City. So I practiced with Justin in Rapid City.
In Rapid City, South Dakota.
Did you tell him you're living in his basement right now, Tim?
I'm living in his house right now.
Well, yeah,
because he's not there. He's almost living in Phoenix now.
So he gave the same offer to my son Zach.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, because after Zach did dental assisting, he worked for me for a year. Then he worked for my buddy Tom Madron across the street from me, and for a year. And then he was thinking about lab, and Justin's got a lab.
Yeah, Pro
and
Smiles.
he's what's it called?
Pro Smiles.
And Justin, we were having dinner, and he, without blinking, he says, "You can live in my home for free and work in my lab, and I'll hire you right now."
Yeah.
And he's so cool. But he's got a house down here.
Scottsdale. Yep.
In Scottsdale, where the rich people live.
Yeah.
I'm in the poor part of town in Phoenix. And so will he eventually, think, is he going to go back and forth, or do you think he's kind of moving? I mean, do you see yourself living in Arizona sooner rather than later, or?
No, I think, from that inaugural event that's kind of going on right now, it's been absolutely phenomenal as far as the amount of surgery that the participants are getting. And as long as that keeps moving forward, I think he'll just keep splitting time. But I know Rapid City probably sounds like not the greatest place in the world, but supposedly the summers and the falls up there are really nice. And so I think maybe when it gets real hot down there, he'll still be spending some time up there.
I know I shouldn't say this because you're never supposed to talk about religion, sex, violence, politics.
That's all the fun stuff.
But it's the best pheasant hunting in the world.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love pheasant hunting up there.
Yeah,
and I forgot where it was. What is the interstate up there? Is it 70 where it crosses
that's down by us.
Where is that? Where the big
there.
river, the Mississippi? You're
thinking of the Missouri that goes through the Dakotas.
Where the Missouri passes an intersection, a big interstate, a big east-west interstate.
Well, there's I-80 going east-west.
Yeah. I think where the Missouri crosses I-80, that was my all-time favorite. I mean, I think Dad and I and everybody went back there like 3 or 4 times for some reason by that river. And one of the coolest memories I ever have of a pheasant hunting trip, I think it was about 10 or something, is you just can't make this up. I mean, I think I saw 1 million birds take off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
at once.
Sounds
like a helicopter.
It was
coming out from under
I
your
can
feet.
remember. I'll never forget. It was
a
like
little scary at
the
first.
sky just turned black with all these birds, and
It's one thing when they're flying over you. It's another thing when they come up under your feet and take off. I mean, that's
the pheasant.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that's a whole different.
Do you remember going pheasant hunting?
Yeah,
vaguely.
It's a whole different
Vaguely.
experience.
Yeah. I just remember there's 3 kids. So when I went through 6 weeks of the Pank Institute, I took all 4 of my boys, stayed across the street. There's this nice resort right on the ocean. They played on the sand, and I thought they had the 6th best 1-week vacation in their life while Dad was, doing CE. They don't freaking remember. They don't have zero. Do you remember that at all?
Are you talking about pheasant hunting with Craig Steichen?
No. I'm talking about.
We're past that.
We're back to Key Biscayne, Florida, and I'd always take you. No memories of that.
No.
How old were you?
No, I don't know. What year was it? Yeah.
I don't know. So
Like that,
my vote is just leave the damn kids at home. Give them to grandma. You know they want to stay with grandma.
They do.
You know grandma wants them. Let me tell you an inside story about grandparents.
I do remember being like 4 or 5 on that Alaskan cruise, and that's like some of my earliest memories. So there was some synapse.
The coolest thing about the Alaskan cruise when I would take them on cruises is they had the Motorola had these walkie-talkies. So me and their mother would have a walkie-talkie, and we would just tell them, we would turn it on, and I don't think they, they didn't care, but they would be talking. But I mean, it was so hilarious because they would go to all the floors, they go in the engine room, and you could hear, oh, let's hide. That's the guy who kicked us out last time. Yeah. And then they're hiding, and then they're all like, "Is he gone? Is he gone? Okay, let's go."
Yeah.
And just sitting on the deck, listening to these 4 boys with walkie-talkies, wondering, okay, are you guys aware that mom and dad are listening to all these conversations too? Yeah. But that was so fun. But the inside deal on the grandparent deal is you don't leave your grandchildren with your grandparents enough. Yeah. Very bad on you. Yeah. So instead of dragging them all the way to Key Biscayne and spending $14 gazillion, it's free to drop them off at grandma's house. And then what's so funny is how they look at you and they're afraid that you don't know how to take care of this kid. It's like, are you not aware that you're sleeping with my child?
Who do you think raised you?
Yeah, who do you think raised your husband? You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure that I know how to take care of a baby for a week at any age. But anyway, well, thanks so much for coming by. It was an honor and a privilege to have both of you guys come by. Yeah, last question, final question. Tell Justin it was my final question. Does he drink as much Cinnabon Fireball as he claims? Or are those jokes? Is that a joke?
He's pretty legit.
You think he's legit?
I haven't seen him a lot since I moved up there, so I can't comment on that yet.
Because he posted one picture on Instagram where he sat down, he had like 10 shots and a big bottle. He goes, it's time for dessert. And I'm like, dude, you're not doing 10 shots of Fireball. He's got a local
wine and spirit store that sponsors his podcast.
Yeah.
So if that answers your question, then
then that was a good answer. Yeah. And that's why his podcast is so good.
That's why it's so good.
Because that's why I call mine Dentistry Uncensored. I don't want to be politically correct and talk about everything that everybody always agrees with. I mean, let's go below the belt. Yeah. So thanks so much for coming over, man.
Glad to see you.
Hey, thanks so much.
Really appreciate it.
And I'm gonna put you on the fire deal.
Yeah.
You guys are lecturing. You guys are doing all that. The best way to turn them on to you is online CE course. Create some online CE because they. I don't know if people realize this, but all of our online CE is free for all dental students. Yeah. So we got 411 courses, and when I'm in those dental schools, a lot of them don't know who all the people that we know.
Yeah.
Because they're in dental care. But you know who they do know? They know everybody who's created an online CE course. They drop those names like they're their cousin Eddie because they're listening to their endo instructor, who might not be the greatest endo instructor in the world. Then they're going to Dental Town, where we've gone around the world to get the greatest endodontic instructors. And you go into the dental schools, they're always like, oh man, I love that endo guy from South Africa, and I like this guy and that guy. So make an online. And the other thing is this: the online CE course. I love it, and so many of the dental students tell me, like when they're in a lecture at dental school, and if the lecture is lame and they're not learning anything, they put on their headphones and listen to online CE. And then dentistry are all into Apple. So we have data if you're coming on our site from Droid or Apple. They're almost all Apple. So they got that Apple TV. So they come home, they throw it up on the screen. It's free, and they're watching these hour-long courses, and they flip and love it. And so many dental students have told me that after graduating $400,000 in debt, the best 400 lectures they ever had in dental school was the free ones on downtown. So make us a course.
I'll put something together.
Yeah, I'd really. Good. Yeah, talk to the kids. They love it. Yeah. All right, buddy.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, appreciate it.
The honor was all mine. Thank you, Ryan.